So good afternoon, everybody. I'm Sherry Prupus, Director of Teaching and Learning with Technology, and I'm also the Director of the Digital Accessibility Compliance Initiative. And it's our pleasure to offer you a variety of webinars throughout the fall semester to help you gain the skills and create the habit to make your materials accessible at the time of creation. Today we have with us Paige Durham, who has been at the system for several years and is now one of our trusted accessibility experts. And I turn this over to Paige.
Happy Tuesday, everybody, and happy afternoon to you all. I will be sharing the slides with you all at the end, so please don't worry about taking notes, or if there's something that you see, we will go over that. So obviously some of you have seen me before. I was the senior instructional designer at Germanna until in December, and then I moved to another job, and then I decided that I just wanted to do my own thing. So here I am. So I'm doing my own thing. So we're going to talk today about making your content accessible from creation. We will do other workshops, as Sherry said, that we'll go back and maybe how to redo some things, but this is going to be from anything that you're doing and starting with now. So we are all, as the VCCS, considered a Title II agency. And because of that, that means that we need to comply with the DOJ ruling about the April 24th, 2026 deadline. So today we're going to be talking about ways that we can start changing some habits in order to make that deadline less ominous. So these are some reasons why it matters. It's not just about making it for people who need it, because I don't know about you, but I use captions on videos all the time. And why? Because sometimes it's just easier to read them. I know a lot of us use the ramps for accessibility to enter buildings. So it's about making things easier and more accessible for everyone. So, and it is also not just about that, but now it's also about the compliance piece. And the last piece is usability, making things easier for people to read and to interact with in a way that is much less cumbersome for them when they are trying to understand and access materials. So accessibility is not about people, and it's just it is about people, not checklists. So we are going to talk about the things that you need to do to check your content today, but understand that it is 1 in 5 people have a disability. And this could be anything from mobility to vision and hearing, and even things that we don't think about. So when we're talking about these things, we're thinking about ways that we can make our content clear, concise, and accessible for anyone to read or interact with. And please notice that I didn't just say read. It's not always about reading, it's also interacting. And that has to do with some keyboard navigation, which we'll talk about. So this is the compliance piece. So the Title II ruling said everything has to meet level AA compliance for all digital content and services. So this applies to everything that we post, every document, every email, every PowerPoint, every PDF, every single thing that we post is necessary to make sure that we meet these specific standards. And how can we do that? So this is the implementation guideline, and I left this up here kind of. There were 2 things on here, but there's really not anything. It's a one time, one date that we need to abide by. The clock has already started, and yes, we are possibly a little behind in where we should be, but it's not impossible. And there are some things that we can do now that will help us get ahead when we need to go back and visit some things. Oh, and I forgot to say this. Please post any questions that you have or any comments in the Q&A. The chat is turned off. And that way, if I can't answer them during the webinar, I can answer them afterwards and send you the responses. So that's the deadline, April 24th, 2026. Oh, no. There we go. So captions, that's one thing. When we are making videos or we are doing any kind of podcasting or any kind of audio, we need to make sure that we also provide visual captions of what we're doing. There's some really interesting things with captioning. I don't know if you have them turned on your TV or not, but sometimes it's not just the words that they're saying. It's sometimes the animal sounds or the motor sounds. If it is important to convey meaning to the scene in the movie, you will notice that there is captioning that often describes something that is not being spoken. We need to also keep this in mind when we're thinking about putting in captions that may be describing something that we are doing or some external non-verbal cue that leads us into whatever it is that we are doing. So captioning is helpful for non-speakers. Again, I said I use captions all the time. If I am sitting somewhere and I want to watch a video, I make sure my captions are on because I turn the sound off on my phone. And then, of course, those people who just need the captions in order to be engaged with the content that they're seeing on the screen. Keyboard navigation. If you are like me, you may or may not use the tab key. People who have a motor disability or need to maneuver or manipulate a keyboard differently, that tab key is super, super important. And people don't really think about that when we're talking about forms and we're tabbing between things in the form. That tab key has to work so that anyone can access the form in a way that is easier because maybe they don't have the ability to use a mouse or a different kind of mouse or something like that. So we have to keep that in mind. And high contrast. The older I get, the more I turn on the dark backgrounds on all of the things that I am viewing online. I prefer the dark background with the white text on top as opposed to the white background with the black text on top, but those are very high contrast in either direction. And we don't really think about that sometimes when we're sending an email and we might have that stationary background or something like that, that makes some of the words much more difficult to read. So when we're doing things like that and we're making PowerPoints or we're doing any kind of color on top of another color, we have to remember to think about the contrast between the two colors needs to be vast so that whatever we're trying to highlight is much easier and visually clear. So the next part of this, we're going to talk about those specific things that you can do in order to make your content accessible. So we're going to talk about these little accessibility skills. And we're going to start with something that seems to be one that is actually pretty easy to implement, but it's less, it's not quite as easy to go back and put these in after the fact. So headings versus style. When you are putting, I'm sorry, I got to have a drink. When you want to create style or structure in your documents, a lot of us in the past have used things like bigger text, bigger font, bold text, italics, but that doesn't come across when someone is using a screen reader. Bold and things like that don't have any kind of differentiation when the screen reader is reading it. So what we need to do instead is use heading tags like H1, H2, and H3 rather than making this text bold or bigger. And that really helps with the screen reader. Sorry, I have a tickle in my throat. Um, Here are some examples of exactly what I was just saying. So if you notice on the left, those are the poor examples. The first one is bold, and then the other side you can see that's a heading 1. Now, what I am using today to show you this, this presentation is a product called Gamma. Gamma really kind of does a lot of this work for me so that when I'm putting things in, it automatically knows to put in heading 1. And then if I have something else, it knows to change the next important thing to heading 2 and so on. But that's this specific product. Word and PowerPoint both have them available as well. You just have to know where to find them in Word and PowerPoint in order to create those headings and create that structure rather than using bold font or just bigger text, which is the second example. And then the last one is just italics. Again, it doesn't, as a screen reader, it doesn't differentiate anything that is being read by the screen reader. So headings are how you're going to build the structure. So I want to take a minute, if I can find my mouse that I just lost. And I apologize for the pause, but there we go. And I know you have a black box there. Let me move this. All right, so here we are in Word. Easy enough. Your headings are in the center, and maybe you know this, maybe you don't, but I felt like I probably should go over it. So if I click on this, you can see this is where your headings are, and you can also enable this by creating the styles when you're starting. So you can click on that, do the heading, and it's also going to give you this little caret arrow that is going to help you if you wanted to build out a table of contents and things like that. Google Docs also has the same thing and is super easy to use. So you have the title, the subtitle, the headings, and then you also have the other kinds of styles that you can put in. But what I also want to, while I'm here, I want to click on review. If I click, oh, let me close that, sorry. If I click on review, which is in your ribbon at the top, you notice that I already have a check accessibility place. That is going to check those headings for you, as well as the alt text if you have images, and and the focus if you needed to. So, and if you hover over any of these, they kind of give you a very brief description. So it's eliminating distractions so you can focus on your document. This is the navigation pane. So you can, it kind of gives you an idea if the reading order is correct. So, okay, I'm sorry, that's Sherry in the chat. Let me just hit ignore on that. All right, so that's how you can find that in Word. PowerPoint's the same way, in the same place, and under the review tab is where you're going to be able to check that accessibility for any document. So the next thing I want to talk about is tables. A lot of us like to use tables to make things even on a page. And that unfortunately is not what tables, according to accessibility, should be used for. So we need to make sure that when we're building the tables, that we show the difference between the data points and should have a clear header in each row or column. And also the table should actually have a caption itself, like what is the table describing? I really got all of a sudden. And for those of you that know me, you know I generally never have any issues talking a lot. Anyway, so um again, the red table just says don't use tables for layout purposes to make things appear on a screen to be equal. So this is the easiest way to think about a table. So you want to make sure that you have clear headers in your tables that describe the column and the row. You want to make sure that you avoid merged cells, but not necessarily unless they are necessary in order to break up what is in the table, and then merged cells are fine. It's just saying that sometimes if it's a complex layout, merged cells are often very difficult for a screen reader. And you want to also make sure that it is logical reading order, which means it flows from left to right and top to bottom. Many years ago, when we were talking about building out kind of content, people basically read in the shape of a letter F. And if you think about that, it makes great sense. So if you're looking at a document and you think about the letter F, if you think about that information, if it's in a graphic or in a table or anything else that is in that bottom right corner, that's the information that generally will be overlooked. We tend to spend our time because of how our system works on that left side, and that's generally where we want to think about placing the important information. But for accessibility purposes, we also need to remember that it is left to right and top to bottom, so that if we keep that letter F in mind, that when we're building out our content, we'll know that screen reader will make sure that it is in logical order that way. And the last thing is a table caption. Now, because I mentioned earlier that I really feel like a lot of us might use tables to kind of even things up when we are putting them in, I also wanted to provide you with a way to do that, but still also be accessible. So within Word or PowerPoint, you can use a 2-column layout or text boxes with proper alt text. Canvas, again, you can use design tools or 2 columns. So all of these things here are ways that you can figure out putting your content on a page or in a presentation or wherever you need to put it in a way that makes it visually appealing, but also accessible. So I wanted to make sure that I provided this because I think sometimes that when we talk about what we can't do, we need to give that option of what we can do that will either mimic or be better than the way we did it before. I also gave you a little definition of reading order because I wasn't sure that everybody understood that. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that one little kind of information box there at the bottom. So does anyone have any, I don't see any questions in the Q&A right now, but Sherry will unmute if I do. Alt text. So alt text is what we want to see or what we want to hear if we were not able to view images in a document, PowerPoint, and there are options. Sometimes our images are purely for decoration, and if that's the case, then they just need to be marked as decorative. But sometimes the information contained in the image conveys and has meaning, and we need to make sure that we provide alt text so that someone who is listening to the screen reader understands the image that is in whatever is on the page in front. I'm sorry, I am. Ooh. Yes, Melody. I will show you something. Okay, so by the way, most things that we have, for example, we have Adobe, and Adobe has an accessibility checker, Word has an accessibility checker, PowerPoint has an accessibility checker, so those kinds of things already exist. But I think I know what you're asking me. I think you're asking for an online. The next thing is how to describe the image that we see. So normally an alt text is less than 125 characters. However, there are some, for example, an infographic, which may be very detailed. If that's the case, then what we do is we say long description can be found, and then it's linked to wherever you want to put the long description. But you don't want to have a long description in an alt text. You want to keep it at about 125 excuse me, characters. When you are doing that, if you're struggling, I use generative AI a lot of times for alt text because it makes it much easier for me, and then I can edit that alt text if it is incorrect, or if I need to make it longer or shorter, or if I need to change some words. But it's a great place to start if you want to take some images and put them into generative AI. And I'm going to show you those examples in just a minute. And then context. So what is if you're words, when you are looking at the image in relation to the rest of the text, make sure that the alt text conveys the connection between what you are trying to convey in the image and how it relates to the text that is there. So I'm going to give you, oh, maybe not. There we go. So good examples and bad examples of alt text. So image of students, not great. Students collaborating on a group project in the library. Photo, terrible, right? Diverse students using laptops for research. The last one is a little bit long. It has more information than is necessary. So if you can see the last example, that is kind of how you can do that. So let me now move over to, nope. Oh, come on. It's not going to do this to me again today, is it? 1 second. Oh, technology, 'tis great. All right, so here we are in my ChatGPT. I'm going to add a image. And I'm going to please provide. And that's literally all I'm going to type. Simple, right? You can do this in Copilot as well. I just didn't. Now, notice that it gave me a very long description that is obviously more than 125 characters, but it's also smart enough to ask me if I want a shorter, under 125 character version. So I can just say yes. And then it's going to give me a shorter version. And so here is the shorter version. So that can be done with lots of different kinds of things. So you can do this in Copilot. Again, but you may have again, I didn't say, and I know it would do this, I didn't tell it in 125 characters when I started because I wanted it to give me the longer description. Um, if I go and I put in something that is a bit more complex, oh no, here, let's do this one. You can see that this is an infographic. It's very, very detailed. Now, because the infographic has information that is important, shortening this may not necessarily be the best option. What I could then do is say, I could do the short description, and then I would also say, here is the full long description, and then I would link to that somewhere else. I hope that makes sense. And Sherry, stop me if oh, Melody, you want to, okay, that's a something I don't have. I don't have access to JAWS, um, which is what you're asking.
Melody, we have somebody who is using a screen reader. We will ask her to give us a link to a free screen reader so you can test your own work. And we'll also ask her to create a short little video so that she can show a screen reader reading a Word document, and as well as a PDF and a PowerPoint. So we will get that out.
Yeah, but the normal thing is what's called JAWS, and that's not free. And that's what most people are using for a screen reader. Um, just to keep that in mind. So those are ways in which you can use generative AI to help you with complex images like an infographic, or simply to help you with alt text for the purpose of putting it in to a Word document or PowerPoint. Now, there's one thing that nobody thinks about, and that's going to be what I'm going to talk about next. We all have oh, we all have pretty little signature things in our Outlook. A lot of times we have an image that is contained in that signature. That image still needs to have alt text. You can do this very easily within Office 365, and that is what I have shown you here. So when you're in Office 365, if you go to the settings and then you go to account and then you go to signatures, you're going to be able to see your signature. And then you're going to choose to add the image, which is the number 1. That's where you add the image here. Then once the image is there, you can resize it and do whatever you need to. Then you're going to click on the 3 dots, and that's going to bring up a little menu, and then you can select the image and then choose it's going to be on the second row from the top. And if you hover over that, it's going to say add alternative text. And that's where you would put that information for the image that you have in your Outlook signature. So Sherry, I know that wasn't how you did it, but that's the easiest way to do it. All right, now let's move on to videos. So video captioning requires that all pre-recorded video content, for example, this Zoom meeting today, Zoom very nicely, and thank goodness, does provide a transcript afterwards so that that can be added. If you wanted to put it into YouTube, then it would have captioning that went along with it. But Zoom also captions. It only does some strange things with words it's not familiar with. I will say that Germana was always very interesting in what Zoom chose to hear. It was never the actual correct name of the college, but that's at least it's helpful. Now, what I can also tell you is if there are things in your captioning that are proprietary or maybe different, or maybe it's an acronym and you said the acronym and the captioning thought you said something else. You can take Copilot or ChatGPT and put that transcript in and ask it to fix those things that are incorrect. And also you can ask it to remove your ands and your ums and your other maybe not words that you don't really want on a screen as far as captioning goes. So now it says auto-generated captions are not sufficient for compliance, but that's because if they're just auto-generated, that means we still have to go back and review them. And that's about half correct. So yes, technically they're not completely compliant because we have to review them, but it's a great place to start rather than having to type out your entire or read your transcript while you're doing your recording. So that is the same for podcasts. Podcasts should also have a transcript. When you have nothing but audio, and underneath that it should have a little place that says transcript can be accessed or downloaded here, and then that is where you're going to put your transcript. You can have a lot of the podcasting software already has that automated captioning that then you can review as well, and so that you can download that and then make sure that you put that as well.
And Zoom creates a transcript for us.
Yes, but you still need to check it.
Yes, so it's one of our downloadable files. When we download the recording, we can download the transcript, and then we're asking that people review the transcript both with their own eyes and perhaps with AI.
Okay, so once you have the transcript, then you have to decide how you're going to put that with whatever it is you're connecting it to. And this is where hyperlinks come in. And we've all been guilty of this at one point or another. The problem with click here, you can't do it. You cannot say it. You cannot put it. You must use descriptive link text. So you don't ever want to say, for more information about our graduate program, click here. Instead, you underline the words that are important. For example, graduate programs and admission requirements, and then you make that the hyperlink. Because a screen reader reads click here is not helpful. You also want to make sure that the reason that click here is not helpful is because they have no context in where here is going or what it is they're getting ready to move to. So that's why your descriptive links must be there. So click here is out. These are some examples of accessible versus inaccessible. Read more. Read what? More what? Right? Hyperlinks that are not that are actually the full URL. So think about this. If you were listening to a screen reader and every time it came to a hyperlink, you had to hear https://gamma.app/docs/building-accessible. If you had to hear that, you would stop listening. So that's why it's important to make sure that you don't have raw URLs in a document, email, or anywhere else. And any URL that you do have has descriptive text. It needs to describe where you are going and what it is linked to. And again, if you have issues and you're not sure how to do that, let me know. Sherry?
Yes, so the comment that I wanted to make is in all software, you have the ability, if you go to insert, there will be a place that says link. So that where I have download the scholarship application form, I highlight that with my mouse. I go up to insert link, I put the raw URL there, and now download the scholarship application is now clickable.
Okay. Now, moving on to the next part, which is the thing that most people
Oh,
don't.
I'm sorry, Paige, one more question related to the URL. James is saying when you have that URL, can you just go back to the screen, and when you have the URL
Yep.
that says accessibility resources or scholarship application, how does the person with the screen reader, how do they know that's actually a link and not just text? What is the screen reader saying to them?
It will tell them it is a link. It'll say link, view the student handbook PDF. Does that make
Thank
sense?
you.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. All right. Keyboard navigation. Most people don't think about people who don't use a mouse when they are moving and maneuvering on their monitor or on their laptop. However, if you need to move around without a mouse, what's the key that you need to use? And most of the time, that is your tab key. So a lot of people who are using a screen reader have their hands on the keyboard at all times so that they don't have to try to find their mouse. So everything needs to be accessible from the keyboard, which is, again, you need to think about the tab key, the escape key, and any of the other keys that function and do something with your computer. So when you're looking at navigation, it must be logical and predictable. And when you're doing these, think about a PDF form and you are on your keyboard and you need to move between the other boxes. Most of us use a mouse to move to a different box. However, I challenge you the next time you get a fillable PDF form to only use the keyboard and your tab key to see if you can actually complete the form. Good luck. Most of the time, I will tell you that it's not always possible. And I'm one who really does use the tab key a lot. Just because of the way because of my typing skills. So a lot of times if I am in a form, I want to tab, and a lot of times that tab is not there. And so imagine how frustrating that would be if you didn't have a mouse, and how are you going to be able to complete these documents? So here are ways that you can help with those who are not using a mouse. So logical tab order, and then provide skip to main content. So if there is something repetitive in a navigation, they can skip that navigation into get to the content that they need to, as well as visible indicators showing where your cursor is. So that is what that visible focus is. So where is my cursor? And can I turn on something that shows that cursor in a different way? A lot of people do change their cursors so that it looks different, so that they know exactly where they are in a document. And the last one is no mouse only actions. So anything that is a right click only, you need to think about that differently, because if you don't use a mouse, then you cannot right click. So those are some things to keep in mind when using, thinking about keyboard accessibility. So these are some quick tips that you can ensure keyboard accessibility. So every interactive element should be able to be focused on and visible, as well as activated using basically something like just the tab key. When you are putting in any kind of active element, make sure that it is indicated, whether it's an outline, a highlight, so that the user always knows where they are. Again, we're back to maintaining logical reading order here, so making sure that it flows top to bottom and left to right. Descriptive labels. Make sure that any button or link is clearly described. So that kind of goes back to the hyperlinks, which is the submit application and not the click here or read more. And then the last thing is pop-ups or windows, because that is something that takes the user out of the keyboard. So be very careful with anything that is a pop-up or any kind of modal window. So, and the last little is a quick test is when you are looking at your elements, can you get to every interactive element with the tab key? And does it make sense? So now I want to go back for a minute, and this time I want to open, let me get it here first. This may look really strange on your computer, on your screen, but that's because I have it on my full screen monitor, and so it's huge. All right, so this is the presentation. And I did not, by the way, I did not check this for accessibility purposes because I wanted to do it live. So here I am, and this is, I downloaded this in PowerPoint. And now I'm going to click on the review option, and I'm going to choose check accessibility. Now, a couple things have happened, and I'm not sure you saw them. The first thing is I got a welcome to the accessibility tab. And now you can see add titles to your slides, set the reading order, and then you have alt text. So over here now on the far right, it's telling me that my alt text is missing and there are slide titles missing. So in order to, shapes can be marked as decorative, and then it's telling me that I can review them. So the shape here, it's telling me this box. Yes, so I could choose to do all of that, and that's a quick fix. But I want to go back because Sherry was talking about hyperlinks. So here is an example. If I highlight, oh, come on now. If I highlight that text, I can then go to insert, link, and I can link to documents, or I can insert to a web page. So email address and whatnot. What you need to understand is if you type out your descriptive text first, then highlight it, and then put in this address, that would be your long URL, then it's automatically hyperlinked and very easy to do. You can, again, you could attach it to a document or to you can actually hyperlink within the PowerPoint. So if you wanted it to jump to another slide, you could do that as well. But I wanted to make sure that you understood that. Now, if I go back to the accessibility tab that's now open, there are also other things here that you can look at. So this is, Content convey information using color alone. So a lot of people like to use red or yellow text for highlight, but that is not a great, that's not how you need to do that if you want someone to know that that information is more important. You do not want to use color alone to convey meaning. It's the same thing with bold and italics text. So you want to make sure that you are using color appropriately and not just to convey meaning. So if I click on alt text, I can now, oh, I'm sorry, let me go back over here. Bing. So now I can see what it brought over as the alt text. You also have a generate alt text for me button. And when I type in that, I can either approve it or mark it as decorative. I can go ahead and approve that, and then it's going to, and then I can go back to and do more alt text. So all I did was click on the image in PowerPoint, then I'm asking it to, it's not assigned. So that one wasn't good. And now I'm done. And that's all you have to do. So if I click on this again, now you can see that the alt text is there. So that's the same for Word and PowerPoint. All the tools are the same. If I want to mark something as simply decorative, I can click on the image and then I can just click mark as decorative. And notice that clicking it up here on the ribbon does the same thing as checking the box over on the right. So I can do that on the left or on the right. Totally both work. If you're having trouble, you can also click on the accessibility help option. And then when you've done that, you can run it again. Now I'm also going to show you, let me go back to the presentation for a minute. This is the Microsoft Accessibility Checker. It's in Word, PowerPoint, Excel, and Outlook. You can click on the review tab like I did, and then you're going to choose check accessibility, and then the accessibility tab will pop open, and then you can review the results as I just demonstrated. You can literally go through and maneuver through those things. All right. Excuse me. Wow. Now I want to show you, this is a PDF tool that I found that is called, well, it's PAVE, which would be PAVE. So let me say that right. So this tool is a way to evaluate PDFs. It is free. And you can notice if you click here, it's going to tell you, it says it's untitled. So I need to give this a title. And I can click save and it will make that change. So now that my PDF has a title, and that is an issue. There are going to be lots of PDFs that may be missing a title, and that is, this is a great way to do this. Also notice if I have issues, it tells me what the issues are and I can fix them from here. It also provides me with reading order. So if I'm not sure how a screen reader is going to read what I have on a slide, then I can look here and it's going to show me by hovering over, and this is, it kind of gives me an idea of exactly what order things are being read in. So this is, again, it's a free tool, and you just upload your PDF, and then you can download the fixed document. You also have the ability to do that in Adobe. I don't have Adobe to show you, so I had to show you what I had. All right, so why is it that when we are looking at the accessibility checker, we want to make sure that it's catching things that we might miss? For example, alt text. A lot of times I'll think I have alt text and then I realize I run the checker and I'm like, no, I missed a few. Or I just might want to mark them as decorative. It also makes sure that my headings are correct and I don't skip headings. Like you shouldn't go from a heading 1 to a heading 3. There should always be a logical sequence of the heading order. So heading 1 and then heading 2, heading 3, and you shouldn't skip between the headings. And then looking for color contrast, making sure that everything that you're viewing is on a contrasting background so that the text really shows up in a way that makes it much easier to read. All right. So you can see that obviously images without alt text, bold text to use as headings, low contrast, click here. Those are all things that you can do while you're building the document. And then once you've done that, it makes it much easier for someone who is listening with a screen reader or has a visual impairment to make sure that they understand your document, that is clear, and it is in a way that makes it accessible for them. So we have 5 minutes left, and I want to make sure that you understood kind of what things to be kind of thinking about. And there's a lot here. And again, today's workshop is really focused on anything new that you're creating. So you want to remember to try to add alt text, or is it a decorative image? Then make sure you say that. You want to check your heading structure as you're building your documents or your PowerPoints. You want to make sure that your links are descriptive. And if your link isn't descriptive, make sure that you go back and you change what the description of where that link is taking the reader. And the last one is looking for color contrast and making sure that you don't have yellow text on a red background or something along those lines. If you want to look at some things, I showed you the Microsoft Accessibility Checker. There is another one that I showed you PAVE, which is a PDF checker. If you look at WAVE, Web Accessibility Evaluator, that's going to identify accessibility issues on web pages. And then you can also look at the alt text decision kind of tree. And I would use the either Copilot or ChatGPT to help with those alt texts that may be things that are super complex, like an infographic, the one that I showed you. Oh, there we go.
So Paige, the specific question that Melody is asking, she wants to take a Zoom session, a video that she made in Zoom, whether it was a meeting or she created it herself, and she wants to upload it into YouTube. She used to only
No, you need to upload both the video and the transcript from Zoom. So you should always be uploading 2 things into YouTube when you are putting in a Zoom file. And there's 4 files that you get on a Zoom recording. You get your video file, you get your audio, you get a transcript, and that's what you're going to put in. It's a VTT is the end of the file name that has the actual what it has in there is it has the timing and the words that go so that the captions will actually match up with the video. So it is the VTT file, and in YouTube, when you get to that screen, hold on, I can show you one in a minute. Yep, here we go. So, oop. If I go over here to channel and I click create and I click upload video, I have one somewhere. Oh, here's Sherry. So we're going to use this one. You would probably give it a better name than the one I just gave it, which is, I'm going to say, no, this is a test. And then you say it's not for kids, click next. This is where you would add your subtitles. So you're going to click here. You're going to choose upload file with timing. And then you're going to find that VTT file. And now here you go. And so this is where the transcript gets up, the transcript gets uploaded. And you click done. Next, it's checking for copyright. I'm going to make this one unlisted. Click save, and you're done. So that's how you do a YouTube video, well, Zoom to YouTube, and put the captioning file in correctly, if that makes sense. Hopefully that should kind of covered everything. All right, I want to make sure that we have enough time for any other questions. You're very welcome.
First, I do want everybody to join me in thanking Paige. This was a huge overview with a lot of information here. Over the next couple of weeks, we will be adding in several more workshops. I just posted Working with Images. That is next week, September 22nd at 11. I sent you the link. And to everybody who registered, I'll send you the additional ones on working with videos, on-page content like headings, and earlier I did the creating accessible PDF. So we will do deep dives into each of the sections that she did. And Paige just posted her slides, which are enormously
They can't see that.
helpful.
They can't see that.
Oops.
Only you can. You have to reshare it.
Let me send this to everyone. And then I will also share it when I share the recording with everybody. I do thank everybody for their participation. The accessibility is really important. It helps everybody, not just somebody with a documented disability, but it helps all of us. As we said, all of us use the sidewalk curb cuts. Many of us use the closed captions in a lot of the things that we stream, and it just makes it easier to have multiple ways to take in information and to participate. So I thank all of you for spending some time. Now it's not time to panic. We'll let you know in March when it's time to panic. Pick 2 or 3 things that you're going to start doing the very next time you create content. Put in alt text, use header markers, and use descriptions for your URL. You are more than halfway there. Will there be other things that you'll need to learn to do? Yes, but start with those 3 and you're a big way there. I thank you all for your participation and look forward to seeing you on our next session. And a big thank you to Paige.